On the way to Tehran, the flight over forbidding mountain scenery certainly seemed to camouflage the Persian hospitality awaiting the delegates. Stalin, Roosevelt and Churchill, plus their staffs, all came by air. The Soviets' great leader leaving his country for the first time for over 30 years. Roosevelt and Churchill, on the other hand, were coming fresh from their latest conference, the Cairo meeting with Chiang Kai-shek. But they were flying to what was obviously the most important conference of the war. The whole world knew, or at any rate guessed, that the Anglo-American Soviet conference was on, but the location, Tehran, was still a secret as the aircraft converged onto the Persian capital. Tehran itself was well chosen as the meeting place, a convenient halfway house, so to speak, for the big three to perfect their plans. To us in Britain, the street scene presents something quite new, something less familiar than the setting of any previous conference. The contrast of age and modernity was everywhere apparent in this city, which is situated some 4,000 feet up near the foothills of the Elbrus Mountains, separating the capital from the Caspian Sea. Here's the guard at the British Legation. The British Legation, where political and military leaders of all three nations were to be seen from time to time between sessions of intensive consultation. That is, if, like Movietone's cameraman Jack Ramsden, you could gain admittance. Mr Eden, of course, was there. Lieutenant General Sir Hastings Ismay, Chief of Staff to Mr Churchill. Sir Archibald Clark-Kerr, British Ambassador in Russia, and Sir Alexander Cadogan, Permanent Under-Secretary, Foreign Office. Service chiefs, all of them familiar figures who have assembled at every big conference in the past, were seen leaving the legation to coordinate Allied plans. Service chiefs and political leaders, all those men, in fact, whom you'd naturally expect to find at this climax of consultation between Britain, America, and the Soviet. And by the way, the speed with which these pictures have arrived is due to the facilities afforded by all authorities concerned. At the Soviet embassy, there was a ceremony on the Monday, the ceremony of the presentation of the Sword of Honor for Stalingrad. This, of course, was the sword presented by the King on behalf of the people of Britain, a magnificent tribute to the immortal fame of the defenders of Stalingrad, whose victory there was a turning point in the war, a turning point which led to a year of Allied victories on every front. Marshal Stalin received the sword from our Premier and handed it to Marshal Voroshilov. Mr Churchill celebrated his 69th birthday the next day, and this was one of his presents. A Persian hat presented by the press and officials of the MOI and OWI. Later, wearing the uniform of the 4th Queen's Own Hussars, one of the regiments in which he has served, he inspected troops who included units of PAI Force, the Buffs and the Sikhs. They all had birthday presents for him, bought by officers and men, a cigar box, a silver tray, and a small picture. Mr Churchill was naturally eager to accept these gifts, but they had to be presented with due ceremony. There was a rush when he called the troops closer in order to address them. "I hope and trust," he said, "that the decisions we are making may shorten the war and enable you to get back to your homes." Exactly what they and all of us hope. On the same day, he was received by the Shah at the Soviet embassy. He had presented Mr Churchill with a Persian carpet, one present that isn't on view. But the ceremony of the sword and the Premier's birthday festivities were only brief interludes in the course of the great meeting. The rest was work. Work to finalize plans for complete cooperation during the war and during the peace which is to follow. Political work was no less important than military planning. And these are some of the men on whom responsibility rested. Section Officer Sarah Oliver went to Tehran as her father's ADC, and pretty busy she was kept. A terrific conference, planning to make certain of the destruction of the German forces in the shortest possible time. And these are some of the men carrying responsibility for that most desirable objective. Marshal Voroshilov, for years one of the Soviet's most prominent leaders, Sir Hastings Ismay, and General Sir Alan Brooke, Chief of the Imperial General Staff. Finally, the big three themselves. It's doubtful if so many millions have ever placed such unstinted confidence in three world leaders before. Now, all those millions have learnt the result of the Tehran Conference, and although they realize that the decisions have yet to be implemented by action and by sacrifice, their confidence is united and total. We came here, the official declaration reads, with hope and determination. We leave here friends in fact, in spirit, and in purpose.